once and then I just have to open it with the normal stuff. So say hi to everybody on Facebook because we're live now. Hey, Facebook.
Hey, Facebook.
Woohoo. All right. So I have Jessica here and Jill here, and you guys are going to get to know them really well. So if you're jumping on for the first time, feel free to leave comments. After we are done with the show, Jill and Jessica will go out. They'll put their links in there, links to books, links to directories, wherever they want you to find them and how they want you to communicate with them or any free offers that they want to make today. We will drop those in the comments section as well. We'll also have them available on the full podcast show, and I will drop those into the podcast host site as well. So I'll snag all those links from you guys. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. Let's get started. If you by any chance hear any background noise going on, even sometimes I've had background noise and I will mute myself while someone else is speaking. Just mute yourself if you have any background noise that all of a sudden comes up, like a dump truck or who knows, an airplane, a dog, it always happens. And then unmute yourself when it's safe again. Sound good?
Mm-hmm. Works for me.
Okay, here we go. I'll hit record. All right, listeners, welcome back to another episode of Lead Up for Women, Speak Up to Lead Up. I'm your host, Colleen Biggs, and I am super excited to have another week of the world opening for some of us to be able to crawl out of our front doors with, I would say, 3 inches of growth in our hair, these little hooves we have at the end of our ankles, all the things that we took for granted that we were able to just go and do without thought. And so I want to circle back around on that piece for 1 minute. And I always just talk about what comes to me. And this morning I was thinking about, I was doing a course yesterday on gratitude. And I thought to myself, all of the things that I'm grateful for that are in my life. And then when I think of the things I'm grateful for, I'm not just thinking of, I'm grateful for my husband. I'm grateful that I have time. I'm grateful that I can breathe. I'm grateful that the air is clear. I think of, I'm grateful for my husband because, and then I give a definition, because he supports me and lets me be me in every situation, every time, all the time, because I feel safe with him, right? So I think it's more important that we look at what are we grateful for and then why are we grateful for that? So I want to throw that challenge out to everybody today to think of, and I do this when I go to bed at night, I think of the best thing that happened to me during the day, and that makes your mind like a Rolodex. For those of you who don't know what a Rolodex is, it's this big round thing that we used to put everyone's contact information on, because that's how we would know how to connect with people. There wasn't all the electronics that we have today or phones. We didn't have cell phones back then. I would go through a Rolodex in my mind of all the awesome things that happened to me that day. And then I would pick the one thing that meant the most to me. And that's what I would think about as I was going to sleep. And I have this little black rock that sits by my bedside to remind me as I see it when I go to put my phone down to charge it, you have to take one thing that happened that day and think about it. So it's just a reminder of something I do. But I really feel like the more we can focus on gratitude, the more we can focus on inclusion, the more we can focus on letting go of the things in our lives that no longer serve us, which could be people, which could be experiences, which could be something that happened to you many years ago that keeps showing its gnarly face. All of these things that happen even during the day, we have to acknowledge what those things are. Then we have to work through what that is and process it to be able to let it go, to create the space for us to have another experience. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today with my beautiful guests that I have. So I want to introduce you to Jill Murray and Jessica Bargenquast. Say hi to our friend.
Hi, everybody.
So good to have you ladies here today. So I want to start out with Jessica because I met Jessica through Lead Up for Women several months ago. And what I love about Jessica is she believes in change. She's a change maker. She created a directory for women called Lady Changemakers. And she has stats on how, why women buy, how many women own businesses. She's all about the female. Well, we're all about the female here at Lead Up for Women. And so I wanted to have you get to know Jessica a little bit. So, one of the things that I want to ask Jessica just to get us started is tell me how you came up with the idea of Lady Changemakers. What did it mean to you? Why did you create it? There's some story behind this of why you did what you did, Jessica.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for today. I'm so excited to be here. I think it was a divine thing for us to come together and how we met. So I'm so honored to be a part of this. But yeah, I created Lady Changemakers out of a need for myself, really. I love supporting women-owned businesses and I love supporting women, but I found it really hard to find them to support. Or if I heard about them, I couldn't remember that I needed to go out to the store and check them out and support them. So I created this online directory for a need of myself to have a list of places that I could remember to go. So that was why I created this directory. And then lo and behold, 83% of women want to support other women-owned businesses, but 62% of them have no idea how to find them. So I wasn't alone in this. And that stat blew my mind. And it just reinforced that this directory is really important right now. And we need to keep connecting with each other and collaborating. So that's where the
Yes.
idea came from, was really out of a selfish need of myself.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know other than what you have and what I'm part of and how to go on your directory. Before I met you, I didn't know how to connect to know what was a business, a female ran an owned business rather than something that might have been started by a male. And it's not that we're discriminating from it, but as a community, if we stand for lifting women and celebrating them and wanting to promote them and share in that sisterhood, there isn't a place there. So you're solving a problem and coming up with a solution of a need. That's amazing.
Yes,
It's
thank you.
absolutely what we need. So tell us a little bit about your history. Tell us about some monumental shifts in your life, whether it be getting married or tell us a little bit about where you come from and who you are, Jessica. Paint the picture.
Well, been around a little all over the place. I grew up in the Midwest and then grew up in Tucson, Arizona for about 15 years. Moved to Australia for a little bit and then came back to Arizona. So I've been a little all over the place. I've always loved to travel and experience other cultures. And I say now that I'm a huge women supporter, but I don't think I can say that from my past. I actually, from a death in my family, I lost my brother at a young age. He was a year older than me, and that kind of put up a lot of guards. So I actually was very guarded growing up for most of my life until I was probably about 30, so only a few years ago. And I had to learn to let go of all of that and let people in. So I found male friends to be easier to get along with because I didn't have to be open to them. So we could just have fun and that's it. Nothing was expected. My female friends wanted to kind of like dig in and get to know me a lot deeper on a deeper level, and I just wasn't ready for that. So it wasn't until a few years ago where I got a life coach who really taught me this isn't working for you. You're angry all the time. You don't have any deep connections with people. So that's where my female support came from. And I started opening my heart a lot more to my female friends. So I've now started to cultivate such an amazing community of women that I'm so proud to call friends. And it keeps expanding, and my heart is just expanding as well. So I forget your original question because getting deep into my past is a little hard for me still sometimes. But yeah, that's kind of where my past comes from. And the future I see is just women connecting everywhere and being able to travel anywhere and finding female connection. because I think it's so important.
Yeah, I want to anchor in that commonality that you just talked about because I know Jill can also relate to this, and I know I can because the reason why I started Lead Up for Women and the reason why these platforms are being built and created for women is because I had the same feelings toward men and women. So I gravitated toward the male mainly because I struggled with the female because there was so much judgment and there was so much comparison. And I didn't feel like I got along as well with females because I felt like I was different. I didn't know why anyone would compare me to them because there was no comparison. You were you and I was me. So from a very young age, I've always seen judgment through the eyes of a lens a little differently than other people, where I don't judge. I don't see a need for comparison. I sat with my husband for 30 minutes this morning talking about his event and why he's not creating competition within his own area to throw this event. In the minds of some people, if I'm teaching you or sharing my formula and my secrets, you're going to go steal them and then you're going to take my customers, and it's this world of scarcity. And that's what we see happening, that there's only enough room for certain people. There's only enough room for certain people to have a voice. That is false. There is enough room for all of us to share our voices. We were created with one gift that we have that nobody else has. It is our responsibility for the time that we are here to bring that gift forward and to share that gift and leave that mark on the world. That's why we're here. And it takes loss. It takes anger. It takes working through all of the things that you talked about, Jessica, for us to realize and get to that point that then we feel like we can celebrate it and we want to scream from the mountaintops, right? But I really feel like we can't get to the other side unless we go through those experiences and create that wisdom, because that's how we help other people.
Totally agree.
Absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about, you would call yourself an introvert, right?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So you've
if
actually
anyone knows
lived
the
it.
Enneagram, I'm a 5, so you can't get any more introverted than me.
Okay. So how are you loved the pandemic then, I'm assuming, with the lockdown portion of it, the stay at home, you were like, yes. Me, on the other hand, I'm dying. Like I am, I'm more touchy with people than I ever was in the past. And they're like, you can't touch me because of COVID. And I was like, okay, I don't know what everyone's boundaries are right now. This is really hard for me. Talk to me about, we've never broached this subject on our show. So talk to me a little bit about what it's like to be an introvert living in an extroverted world, right? Where you can still use electronics, but what you're doing is creating a community. How do you create a community for women that is asking them to be extroverted, yet you're an introvert? So talk about the tips on how you're able to do that and what you've had to overcome.
Well, as an introvert, it's a terrifying world. So being expected to show up online consistently is still honestly terrifying for me every single day. But what has kind of helped me break past that is just doing it consistently. So it's almost becoming a habit now to keep showing up for my community, which it doesn't make it any easier for me, but it makes it more just, this is what happens today. This is a part of my schedule. So being an introvert, you just have to push past the fear and let go of it. Because what I did when I first showed up on my first video was I purposely didn't do my hair. I didn't do my makeup. I was in workout outfit. That way I could use that as an excuse if my video was bad. So I set myself up to be okay with failure because I already kind of made it a failure. So I got my first one out of the way. It wasn't great, but I had done it. So in each video gets a little bit easier, and I'm so thankful. Well, I can't say thankful, but the pandemic has been easy for me just because um, it encourages me to really think inward and think about things that I can do and really take action on. And um, I'm in my head a lot. And so I like to think of solutions and problems. So I can spend all day in my head and just constantly getting myself out of my head and saying what's in there to my audience has really helped. So I started cultivating a community that I found out is a lot like me sometimes. We're all very beginning in our stages of entrepreneurship and starting our businesses. And I get all of these DMs saying, I don't know how to get on video. And I'm like, oh, me either. Let's do it together. Like we can connect on that level, which is super exciting for me. And I have used some tips and tricks that I found from other experts in the field. I'm not an expert by any means. So I look to someone who is, and of course, it's always a woman. So I look to them, I buy their products, and I bought Instagram scripts. So I actually go on stories with a script that I bought for $40, and it has helped me tremendously just to get started. So for introverts out there, there are tools for us that are meant for us, and it's okay if you suck at it at first. You'll probably suck at it for a while, but eventually it gets a little easier. But I'll be honest, it doesn't get any less terrifying.
Okay, so I want to go back to a couple of things. When you basically were self-sabotaging yourself. How many women can say they've done that, right? We've all self-sabotaged. But to state that you're not an expert, you're an expert in what you do, right? So it really depends on how what you are comparing. Now you're comparing yourself to something or somebody else that you see is, I don't know, has more wisdom, more experience, smarter, says it differently than you do. We all need to remember that we're an expert in what it is that we do and what we know, right? And that can't be taken from you. And to say that you can't say that you're thankful for the pandemic, I know it's very difficult for us to see joy and to see happiness and to see positive things when the world is crumbling around us. However, you can still see joy and be thankful for the things that have happened. Like I was very thankful for this because it really helped my relationship with my husband, because I was traveling so much that we had taken for granted that we really didn't have any time together. We were just I was traveling, he was traveling. This has been a good time for us. So there are so many positive things that have happened and are going to continue to be even more. Every time we go through something this large, companies come out of it that are massively changed the world. So there are silver linings in this. Yes, there are deaths and things that are happening. And now we've got riots and things that are other things that have nothing to do with the pandemic that are happening. Even I look at the worst of the worst to me, which would be sexually abusive women that are, or children that are dealing with abusive relationships or sexually abusive relationships. They were locked in their homes, right? These are the times when they had free time to be away from that. My hope is that my silver lining in that is that they realize enough is enough and they make the decision at that point to make a change in their life, right? So I look at even the worst of the worst and know that the glass is half full. And if we walked around in the scarcity mode of thinking the glass is always half empty, which is, in that that non-creative area of our lives, of course, we're always going to feel like a victim, right? But it's choice. It's choice here. Just like you said, I came back into myself and got guarded when you went through that loss. And it took having someone drag you out of that and really help you open that, because you felt safe with that person to be able to have those conversations. And you're sharing so many wonderful, deep feelings today for many women out there that feel the same way. about what you're talking about of being an introvert and having trouble showing up and really being seen. When I say being seen, I'm not saying you just run the video and you're there. But when you're sharing something about yourself, you're really showing who you are to the world. And that's the scary part. That's where we need community. That's why you're creating community. We're creating community. You're part of our community. We do that so that women can show up and let go of the things that don't serve them anymore, which is scary to do. It takes courage and bravery. It's not weakness. You know, that whole vulnerability is weakness thing. That's such a bunch of bullshit. It just isn't. You know, and it takes more courage and bravery to show the strength that you're showing, to show up. And then now you have just automatically given everyone watching you permission to do the same.
And I
And
just want
that's
to say, I think now is like the introvert's time. I'm excited to see who's building businesses out of this, because this is where we're going to thrive. And
Yeah.
another tip is always to date in the DMs. So that's how I make a lot of my connections, is one-on-one with a lot of women that I admire or am following. I'll just message them back and forth, and we create really honest conversations and connections that way. So.
You know, it's a world where we can really reach anybody. And you can DM someone that you feel is so far out of reach that why would they ever DM me back? And then before you know it, I had a friend that DM'd Gabrielle Bernstein. Does anyone know who she is? Is it Gabriella
It's Gabrielle
Bernstein? I
Bernstein.
think
Yep.
Gabriella. And she DM'd her back. And she was like screenshotting it, sending it. Oh my gosh, I cannot, you know, so we're just people. We're all just people. And we all have our struggles. And the more that we look at that and believe that, that puts us all on the same playing field to support and love one another and realize there's enough abundance for all of us. And I want to circle back around right before I ask you if you will share your community, all your information, what you're talking about for the camera. We actually have coming up, I believe it's next Tuesday. Is that the 23rd? Next Tuesday, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Patty Trosy, one of our members, she's been in Hollywood for 30 years. So she's been on camera for a really long time, and she teaches something called the simple formula, and she breaks it down by what the S means, what the I means, what the M. And so it's pretty much I have it written down here. It's a script of every video that you do, how you start it, how you end it, and the little points in between, because she is the expert, right? To me, she's been on camera for enough years. She has the wisdom and the experience to teach the rest of us how to show up and be authentic on camera easily. Anyone can do it. And so I'm happy to bring her forward. So if you haven't scheduled yourself for that Teaching Tuesday webinar, it's free. So go out there and do that. All you have to do is go to the website, Lead Up for Women. So Jessica, I would like to ask you one question, and then please share with us your community and Facebook that we can connect with you. Please share with us how anyone can get on your directory of Lady Changemakers. But if I were to ask your best friend, what one thing about Jessica do you love the most? What would that best friend say to me?
Probably that I'm a great listener and I'm very honest. So if you don't want to hear something, don't come to me, because I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. One of my best friends, she comes to me a lot for just like personal advice and everything, and I will just tell it to her straight. I'm like, you gotta listen to how other people are hearing this, and this is how we need to flip the script. So I'm a very honest friend. I care for my friends deeply. Like I said, it didn't used to have those bonds with women, so now I kind of go all in with all my friendships. And that's just what you're going to get from me, is just a hardcore friend.
That's awesome. And everyone needs a hardcore friend. Let me tell you what, we all need them, right? The ones that just kind of slap us in the face and say, not happening today, my friend. We all need those. Like, we need authenticity and truth and honesty. And so thank you for being that person for us and for your friends and for your community. So tell us, Jessica, how can we connect with you? How can our listeners connect with you?
So you can connect with me. I show up the most on Instagram, on Facebook as well at Lady Changemakers. And ladychangemakers.com is the website. We do free listings, so I always want to make it no barrier to entry for any kind of woman. So the directory includes anything from a public figure to a freelancer to any woman-owned business. So all women are welcome to this community. So you can submit a free listing at ladychangemakers.com or slide into my DMs and let's start a conversation.
That's easy to follow. Follow her on Instagram if you're not already, because we're going to be releasing more about Jessica throughout the week. So make sure you follow Lady Changemakers because she's a change maker. It's so awesome, Jessica. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
I am honored to have you here, and thank you for trusting me and trusting the listeners and trusting this space to share everything you've been through. It's I'm very honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Same.
All right, Jill. Oh,
All
my
right.
friend Jill. Miss
Now for
TEDx
something totally
Miss
different.
TEDx speaker Jill. So, okay, I want to talk about Big Wild Love. I'm currently reading Jill's book. I say reading, but I read while I'm driving in my car. So she's currently reading me her book. It's like my own little personal story time with Jill every time I get in my car. And I have learned so much about you. And this is why I'm going to encourage every female listening, if you have it on your heart and you want to write a book or even thought about it, start down the path, because we all need to hear each other's stories, because they are so powerful in reminding us that we're enough. Her book is reminding me to let go of things that don't serve me. And her book is reminding me that you don't have to be so uptight and rigid all the time. You can have these things called big wild love in your life and really not have to apologize to anyone for that, right? That's what we stand for, which is leading your life and not apologizing for leading the life that you desire. Because really, what else do we have? One life, that's it, right? So you've done so much. I have in front of me here. And instead of me reading it word for word, you're an award winner. You've got a book. You've been on TEDx. So let's just get to the meat of, you've been on Shape Magazine. I heard that story in the book, a little bit about what happened with how you were raised by your mom. And so,
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about Jill. Go back as far as you want, but I'd love for you to get into a little meat of who Jill is and what you've had to overcome to be the Jill you are today. And by the way, it's not over. The work is still being done.
Oh my gosh, right? Every day, like every hour. What time is it?
It's so true.
I mean, that's such a big question, Colleen. I don't even know where to start. I mean, I guess
start with your relationship with your mom. That stands out to me.
I just think it's so, of course you're going right there. I feel like I'm having a therapy session. Like you're just going right there. When you're in therapy, you're like, please don't talk about this. Please. Okay, we're going to talk about that. No, but I'm fine with talking about it because you know what? I think it is such an important story. And I love that you called it out because so my mother, I was raised by very loving parents. My parents are still alive. They're in their 80s. They've been married for 62 years. Good Jewish parents, back when I was growing up, we did not talk about self-love at all. The prize was the love of a good man, right? And so my mother raised me to be, a good wife and mom, and she wanted me to be, perfect in an aesthetic way. She wanted me to be pretty. She wanted me to be thin because back then those were things that were very, very important. And So my mother was very hard on me in terms of my body. She wanted me to be thinner. She wanted me to be more like the other girls, where I would wear the same things they would wear and want the same things that they wanted. And while I had a lot of friends in school, and I wasn't unpopular, I would say I was popular enough, but I was always much more individual and artistic. And I wanted to be a writer. And I didn't really want to be that conventional. And I didn't really know what to think about my body, except that it was a great source of concern and angst for my mother. And so while she, again, was a wonderful mother, she spent a lot of time monitoring my body. What did I eat? What should I not eat? You know, I'm only going to keep this in the house. You shouldn't have that. I'm going to give you this. It's very important to be thin. Never let down. Never let your guard down. You know, this is the most important thing. And I really do think, Colleen, that there are probably a gazillion women in this world that can completely identify with this, because it's very complicated for us. We love our mothers. We have good mothers, but then there's this one thing. And so for me, you know, in those critical intersection junctions of life where I'm trying to figure out who I am and what's important and how I feel about food and how I feel about my body, you know, my mother's influence was, well, you should hate your body and you should only eat enough to keep your organs fully functioning. And I'm joking about that, but pretty close, right? And so certainly not any of the philosophies that we have or that we know about today. So it's so interesting because when I went to write this book, a huge part of my book is about what we believe to be true about ourselves. Because you said it, letting go takes a lot of courage. It's about risk. And if we don't have the ground under our feet, if we don't know when we're about to take that leap, that there is a net, and hey, by the way, that net is us. It's not anything else. It's always us. That's what big wild love is. So if you don't know, if you were never taught that for whatever reason, whether you have a belief about your body that says, I have to be a perfect size to be loved, because that was maybe the perception, the way that it worked out for you inside of that relationship when you were young. And that's where we get most of our beliefs. So I talk a lot about beliefs in my book, and that is my limiting belief. That is the belief that kept me in one bad relationship after the next, believing that as long as I was a certain size, I deserved love, and I would choose my partners accordingly, which essentially meant that I was choosing shallow and superficial men because they were really only interested in how I looked. And yet there was so much more to me than that. So there was a constant struggle of, you know, what do I do? This is all I deserve. This is all I'm worth. Oh my God, I'm not a perfect size 6 this month. Holy shit, what's going to happen to me? I'm going to lose my boyfriend. I better stay with this one because even though he's terrible, maybe it's the best I can do. Maybe it's all I got. Maybe this is it. This is what I deserve. And it was only when I was able to revise, to understand that belief, revise that belief system, and then use that to cultivate my own big wild love, was I able to go from the wrong relationships, the wrong life, the wrong everything, to the right ones. And I love that you chose that piece about my mother, because I talk about that experience and relationship in my book very honestly. And it was really hard because I was very scared that she would be upset with me. And I have to tell you that she's been unbelievable. In fact, we talked about it because she read my book, and I thought she was really going to let me have it, but I knew it was my truth. It was my story, and I wanted to share it. And I knew, even doing my shape column, which was about losing weight, that it would help so many people, because and that was the one column I wrote about my mother that just got so much attention. But she actually was so amazing. She said, I'm so sorry that I did that. You know, my mother did that to me. Of course, right? Of course. So there's been a lot of healing around this book. Just, well, and the really interesting piece of that story, and I've been on a lot of podcasts, but I've never told that story to anyone. So I'm so happy to be able to tell it to you. The wonderful thing about that story, which is again, such an amazing testament to Big Wild Love, is I was so grateful that she said that, but I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need it anymore. You know, so this is why I wrote this book. This is what Big Wild Love is. There's nobody coming to save you. You are saving you. You are the net. Don't look for the net unless you're looking in the mirror. And if you feel like when you look in the mirror, you don't see a net, that's your work.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I asked the question, and I want to, first of all, thank you and honor you for sharing that story. I was not aware you hadn't shared it before, but I asked because I have I feel like we're sisters from the same mother, actually. I can't say from another mother, right? And I have a similar past and a very broken relationship today with my mother. And we all need a mom. And so
Absolutely.
your struggles that you went through become fuel for me to make changes in my life as I read your book now, or as I have my story time with you now. And I love your rawness. This is why I wanted to interview you. This is why your story and every woman's story, just as Jessica's, is so crucial, because we all have a different experience. We've all had a different life. And instead of competing or comparing ourselves or not telling women how we really feel and not coming together as sisters, but really wedging ourselves from each other, that is not helping us create the culture and for women to be seen in society as we want to be. We complain that we're not equal and we're not seen the way we want to be seen, but we're sabotaging ourselves and not getting there. If we would work together as a sisterhood, kind of like the guys do with their brotherhood, where they all stick together. I mean, they've got good brotherhood, not a lot of competition going on there, right? They're just all after power. We already have the power. Like, we can create life. Most of us can. Our bodies are capable of doing that. For women that have children, we have so much power within us, and we utilize it to self-sabotage ourselves when we are phenomenal human beings with gifts beyond, and the power to make the change we're looking to make, not only in ourselves, like you said, no one's coming, but in the world. Go ahead, Jill.
Well, no, I completely agree with you. And, again, I just keep saying this, because I think that it all comes down to this big wild love. I really mean that. It's not me just like, oh, let's talk about my book, but it's, when I gave my talk, I heard from women all over the world. And I say, we have a crisis of self-esteem in women. And so I see the women that I see who sabotage themselves and sabotage others, who have that sense of scarcity, of competition. They don't have the big wild love. They don't believe that what they want for themselves is possible. They feel that other people have the things that they want. And I don't say that with any judgment. I really don't. I say that all with love, because we were all there. We've all lived that moment where you are engaging with someone who is unhappy, and they bring that, whether they realize it or not, to the experience, wherever that experience is, whatever that engagement is, whether it's with a relationship or a friendship or a family member. So many things that we have and we don't have in our lives come from the choices that we make, which come from the things that we believe to be true about ourselves. And it's such a powerful realization when you wake up to that, because then you realize I can root for my sister. I can be happy for her success without asking the question, why not me? Right? Or she has enough, or that's not fair. No, it is fair. And it's your win is my win. But you've got to have that big wild love. You've got to have that ground under your feet and know that, you know, whatever happens in life, you'll be happy because you can make that happen for yourself. You don't have to rely on other people to do that for you. And that was a byproduct of a revision of my beliefs and of letting go of wonderful, happy, joyful sort of love with a wonderful man who was never going to take me where I wanted to go, and to say to myself, what you want is available to you and you deserve it. That was the ground under my feet, and you'll make it happen. And no matter what happens, even if you find it or you don't, you'll be happy anyway, because there's a lot of ways to be happy in life. And as long as you can find that inside of yourself, that is so much freedom. It's just so much freedom. Really, it is.
So we can't solve it today because it's ongoing work. But what, and because I know, you know, I know you, Jill, and I know when you released your book, nothing happened the way you wanted it to happen. We went into a pandemic right when you were getting ready to go on a book tour and release your book, and you had all these crazy, wild, you know, ideas
dress.
of everything. Yeah, everything that was going to happen. But
yes,
it changed, right? So you had to then again break through this disbelief that my book isn't going to be, no one's going to want to read my book. It's not going to be successful. All of it's going to fail because I can't do XYZ now. That's been taken from me.
Right.
You took that, worked through it, however you worked through it, fetal position, whatever it takes.
Keep going. Yes.
Tears.
Yes. Yes.
I think you said you were like in your laundry room at one point, like, everybody leave me alone. No, cookies, I mean, we don't need to get into,
tissues.
Cookies.
No,
yeah.
I mean, listen, because I think it is such an important thing to say, which is part of the way that we work our way through these things, even when we have like gobs of big wild love. This is all part of it, is that, you know what? That really sucked. You know what? I meditate in the laundry room like a weirdo. I went in the laundry room with a box of tissues and a bag of cookies and cried, because that's what I needed to do. When I need to feel bad, I just feel bad, you know, because if I don't, it's just going to stay there and it's going to get in my way. It's going to get in my way. I have to feel every feeling, and I have to run through every pity party and scenario. I have to get snotty. I have to watch Lifetime. You know, there's just, everybody has their way, because it's all part of the process. You've got to grieve the thing that you lost. And only when you grieve that, and you have the courage to grieve that without being afraid to feel bad or feel that sadness or feel that grief and all that comes with it. But only when you do that can you then, you know, pull up, you know, pick yourself back up and then refocus back on. For me, I was fully in the process that I outlined in the book. For me, once I went through that grieving process, which still comes to me from time to time, and boy, oh boy, I let myself feel it, only then can I pull back up and say, okay, now let's get back down to it. This is my goal. This is what I want. I'm not going to get here this way. So now I gotta problem solve it and figure out how to get there this way. And that's life.
And sometimes the second path becomes even greater than the first path.
Right.
Right.
And that's being open for all the surprises. Yeah.
Because I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. And I love that you mentioned that you have to feel all the feels. And I want to say to everyone out there today,
totally,
you have to ensure the people in your life that surround you allow you to feel all the feels. I have
Yeah.
had to delete people from my life. And as you grow and you change and you become more extroverted, Jessica, and you become more confident, your friends liked the not confident, introverted Jessica, some of them. And that's where they felt safe. So when you start changing, they're not going to get it. And they may not be ready to change with you, and you will outgrow that relationship. And it's so hard when that happens to us because we want to nurture and love. But at the same breath, I went through 2 divorces just like Jill. I don't know if you went through 2, but I went through 2. And mine was because I was unlovable. I felt abandoned by my father. There was all kinds of issues that went on that I had to go through, that I ruined, broke up families in the process. I can only say I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just playing out how my life was when I was a child. And then but I refuse to allow anyone to let me wear a scarlet letter for that, because I apologized to who I needed to. I was forgiven from who I needed to be forgiven from. I've put it in the past. I've unpacked it. I let it go. It doesn't play a part in my life today, nor do I allow, if someone has forgiven me, nor do I allow others to bring it back up and stick that label back on me, because that's judgment. You know? And so I love your courage, Jill, that you're sharing today. Give maybe 2 tips before you share how we can get your book. I've already got the book, but how everyone else can get the book and how they can listen to your TED Talk. Give a couple of tips that maybe you're asked on a regular basis of, how do I give me something I can start today of how I acknowledge a let go to get to that big wild love. Like we always talk about, you can't love another human being if you don't love yourself. That's true. That's why I got divorced. I didn't love myself, so I couldn't love them, even though I thought I did. Then I didn't think they loved me. And then it's just this vicious circle, and then it all just falls apart. When you can love yourself, you open yourself up for that big wild love of you loving yourself and then someone else being able to love you for you. How do they kind of, what's a good stepping stone and process for that?
Well, so I think that there's a couple of things that people can do. I mean, I think that first of all, first they should think about if there's an area in their life where they feel like it's not right. Right. So I don't feel like I'm in the right job. I don't feel like I'm in the right relationship. I don't feel like this friendship is really working for me anymore. I'm feeling stuck in my mindset. I can't pull up. Like, think about an area of your life where you're stuck, because we all go through that. That's life. And then in the spirit of the belief conversation, because most people have no idea what they believe, I would say in the context of that area of life where you feel stuck, I would write down, if only I could X, then I could X. Right. And so basically what that is a prompt, a journal prompt for you. And I would take 10 minutes one day, or if you feel so compelled, do it for 7 days in a row. Same thing. That's the whole thing. As many ways as you can fill in those blanks, do it. 10 minutes, no more. Set a timer, keep your hand moving. Don't stop, don't censor, don't think too hard, just write. And I'm going to tell you, you'll learn an awful lot about yourself and what is standing between you and that thing that you say you want. So I always found like that was a very powerful thing. Journaling is just, I mean, it's well researched, well documented that it's just a really powerful activity for understanding yourself. You can't, if you don't understand yourself and then, make the edits, revises inside of your own self that you need to feel good and have big wild love, you can't let go yet, because you won't do it. Yeah. So you've got to start there.
True. Yeah. That's so true. So tell us, Jill, thank you so much for
thank you.
Sharing
Fun.
So much about you and giving us steps that we can take moving forward. How can our listeners get a copy of your book and watch your TED Talk, how can they get in contact with you?
Okay. Well, first of all, I love that we're having like live story time because I know when you're listening to my book, it doesn't talk back to you this way. So they can find me at my website, which is letgoforit.com. I'm also on social media at Let Go For It on Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Twitter, but not really. I don't really do Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn at Jill Shearer Murray. You can buy my book. You can go to the links through my website. You can buy my book at bookstores. You can buy it at Amazon, of course. You know, everything you could buy when you're buying your 18th pair of yoga pants, you know, pick up my book. And if you have my book and you love it, please leave me a review, which is such a huge thing for authors and so helpful for us. But yeah, and you can even just Google my name, Jill Shearer Murray, and you'll get all sorts of stuff. There's lots of great free stuff on my website if you're struggling, or if you need help, or you're not sure, or you're in a space of, you know, I need to let go, or I've been let go of. There's lots of stuff there for you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jill. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank you.
that.
Thank you.
And the
Yes.
steps
Back to
that
you.
all of you gave today, and the commonality of that Jessica started with the conversation, which is, you know, acknowledge that it's okay to acknowledge that you are not okay with the steps that you're taking and you're uncomfortable. And that is where the growth happens. We all know that when you stay in your comfort zone, that's in your pajamas in front of Netflix. We all know that because nothing can happen to you there. But as Jessica spoke, and Jessica, I want to thank you again for sharing how scared you were to get on video and what your thoughts were behind all that. Like, I'm just going to do it with my hair up in my pajamas. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm self-sabotaging myself already. And then people wanted more and they watched, and then they appreciated your authenticity, which gave you the fuel. And we, remembering this, women, we get our fuel and our wind generally. Some of it comes from us, but we do get it from others as well. And we need to help fuel other women's light lamps, like I call them. We need to help fuel them, not steal their oil so that their lamps burn out. We need to share and share in our genius and our formulas and our steps of how we can get past the blocks, get unstuck. And you're right. Nobody's coming. We all have to press go and lead our lives without asking anyone else's permission and without apologizing for the life that we lead, because it's ours. And if someone else doesn't like it, it's their problem. It is not your problem. So I want to thank all of you for being here with me today. These were powerful messages and words that you shared that I know our listeners will gain so much from. And I'm just honored to have you both here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes,
Back to you.
And they'll drop their information in Facebook, you know, in the comments. I'll also share it on the podcast. You'll be hearing more from them this week, so this isn't the end of it. I wanted to share with everyone quickly our next week's guests. On June 24th, we have Jean Kuhn. She's an author, coach, speaker, serial entrepreneur. She's a coach of mine. I also have Jill Lublin. She's a 4-time best-selling author. She's a master publicity strategist, right? We love master publicity strategists because to me, they just see the world completely different. And I'm always wanting to learn from them because they're amazing. And she's an international speaker as well. So these are also members of our community, the caliber of women. It's just unreal to me who we have in our community and that we attract to each other. So thank you, Jessica, for being just such a sought after member of Lead Up for Women. Same with you, Jill. And thank you for sharing your heart with us today and your trusting Lead Up for Women to take the journey with you. So thank you. All right. So I want to let all of you know that this week, I want you to remember that you are the only you that has ever been, and you are the only you that will ever be. So how you pioneer your future and how you write your story is up to you. So remember, big wild love, get out in front of everybody, do it this week. Don't wait. Lead your life without permission. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Facebook.